Well, we are back at it this afternoon, our final Wednesday program of the season here at Gulfstream Park West. And the final three cards getting underway in about 55 minutes' time. Partly cloudy skies in Miami Gardens as we again venture into the last 30 or so races of the season. And in fact, in perpetuity here at GPW. And it's good to have you with us, everybody, from that clubhouse turn shot to our clubhouse studios here at Gulfstream Park West. Jason Blewett joining you, and hope you're doing okay as we return to action off two consecutive non-racing cards. And just moving forward, happy Thanksgiving to everybody out there, and it's good to have your company here on the broadcast. But with that in mind, there's no racing here, live racing at Gulfstream Park West tomorrow for the holiday, and then we'll wrap things up on both Friday and Saturday. And with that in mind, of course, the big track, some 8 miles east over in Hallandale Beach, is waiting for our triumphant return, and it's going to be a triumphant return, no doubt about it, this coming Wednesday. In fact, 7 days from that opening December 2nd program for the championship season over at Gulfstream Park, and we'll have the usual standard fare Wednesday through Sunday, 5-day racing weeks down here. And the man on the outside, you've got Rod Ortiz and Jose, in fact, 1-2 in that picture there. That is a sharp picture in that gray horse. I got to figure out what race that is. It's not coming to my mind this second, but I'll get it. Fear not. But Arad and Jose, no doubt about it, will be joining us over in Hallandale Beach. And I mean, we start the meet, boom, Wednesday. It'll be great being back over at Gulfstream, and then you're right into the thick of things on that opening Saturday card with the Claiming Crown, and that's just always a great day of racing where the true blue collar horses and the real backbone type runners get their day in the spotlight. And I'm glad the Claiming Crown has found a home here annually on this circuit over at Gulfstream Park. We'll have the 9 stakes and over 270 nominations for those 9 Claiming Crown stakes, a week and a half out on that Saturday, December the 5th. Now, locally this afternoon, we've got some unfinished business to take care of here. And again, the magic number, I think, is probably 30 races, 10 today, 10 on Friday, and I would imagine a 10-race Saturday card to wrap things up. Aside from that, and that's news in and of itself, you've got a jockey and trainer race that figures to come right down to the wire. Now, in the case of the riders and jockeys, Edgar Zayas and Miguel Vasquez are technically tied, as you can see, with 39 wins apiece, yet we won't have Miguel with us throughout this closing week here at GPW. So the question becomes, does Amisel Jaramillo, who trails Edgar by 5, does he get on a bit of a run here, maybe today combined with Friday, and does this thing narrow up coming down to the closing day program on November the 28th? Sit tight for that. I'll tell you, Sammy Camacho rode well here all season long. It's opening day this afternoon, in fact, at Tampa Bay Downs, so no Sammy Camacho, but the 3 of the top 5 guys will be in action today, including Edgar, who's pretty live throughout the afternoon. The trainers race, however, is more of a nail-biter where Rohan Crichton has a fairly slim 2-win lead over Antonio Sano. Safi not out of this. I like Safi in both halves of the early double, and from where I'm sitting, I'm hoping Safi picks up wins 15 and 16 in the first couple of races today, but Kathleen O'Connell sent out a track record performance out of that Carpe Diem Florida bred here in Sunday's last race. A 96 buyer for her, and Carlos David has Airball running a bit later on. So an outstanding list of horsemen there, and good luck to Rohan Crichton as he tries to hold on here in the waning days and races of this GPW autumn racing season. Early pick 5 begins with the first, and I already kind of teased who I like to win, hopefully, in races 1 and 2, and although I did not single Safi's horse in Young Thomas the 10, who I've been waiting for at least a couple of months, that's not an exaggeration for that colt to get on the turf. I gotta at least give myself a little bit of wiggle room with the Wesley Ward firster on the rail and Generic Joe, who again I think you have to go into this thing thinking he's live. Although I'll elaborate a little more on the pedigree of the 10 Young Thomas in a few seconds. Safi's horse in the second. Trainer changed to Safi, dipped down to $8,000 claiming. Two angles that I'm pretty bullish on with the two, let's be honest, and built this play for $24 around her, and I'm obviously leaning into, let's be honest, in that second race. Third's on the turf. That's probably got the biggest scratch out of all the races today. I mean, forgetting about MTOs and also eligibles, losing the 2-1 morning line favorite in Ghostly Prince. And with him out, I'm using the 5 hard game. I'm using the 2 white bridles, Todd Pletcher and Mike Maker with the 3 and 5. 3-horse spread in the fourth, pretty nondescript looking 12-5 maiden claimer, and wrapping things up with maybe in a lot of respects, the toughest race on today's card. You might not be looking at a favorite lower than 3-1 in the cash-out leg, and as such, I wanted 4 horses if I could somehow string 4 consecutive winners into that 5th race. I would want coverage myself. That is a very difficult race. Getting back to this first, though, I think the pecking order just has to begin with the inside post, and although I didn't take the number 1, Generic Joe, again, I think he's probably the top rung on the ladder, so to speak, just given the connections. Now, a little tough for me to fully gauge Wesley Ward's current 2-year-old string here in South Florida because although he's had, I guess, a pseudo-steady presence, he hasn't saddled, or at least his team hasn't saddled all that many horses. And on this circuit, mind you, 6 months between Gulfstream and Gulfstream Park West, 2-year-old exclusive, 3 for 20. So the 2-year-olds down here for Wesley, although I know he's known for that, they have not lit the world on fire by any stretch, and didn't know what to make of that stat right there, but a must-use. And then you've got the 2 that I'm most interested in that aren't trained by Wesley Ward towards the outside, the 9 My Maximilian and the 10 Young Thomas. And here's just a little bit of backstory on both those horses, and appreciate the guys upstairs putting this graphic together for me earlier today. You've got Terry's horse, My Maximilian. I'm a pretty big bullet train when it comes to his offspring on the turf, and he's just not a sire I want on the dirt, so I don't care about My Maximilian's 2 dirt races, although they haven't been all that bad, and he might have enough ability to spring forward. And when you consider the fact that he's run okay on the dirt, even though he's got a turf pedigree with a couple of older turf-winning siblings, and that dam's turf production is 2 for 2, you might have a horse who's sitting on a forward move. Same goes for Young Thomas, who's by Dominus, so you've got the Smart Strike and Lord at War influence on the male side of this one's pedigree. The dam was good. She went 2 for 7 on the grass, and her production on the turf has been perfect, unbeaten with a pair of older siblings. That's good enough for me to get Young Thomas finally on the turf after that horse has been rained out multiple times. We'll move on to the second race here, and we'll hit the main track. The second race on this Wednesday will go at 6.5 furlongs, a 3 lifetime $8,000 claimer. And I think first and foremost, like my 2 biggest pre-race bullets or nuggets would be the 2 posted inside horses with Sensimillion, who's on the rail, and the 2, let's be honest. And the one key parallel or shared parallel and trait with both of those fillies, the fact that they're going out for new barns today, and both look well spotted to me. Wancia Villa sending out Sensimillion, who's coming in off a win, beat a field I don't think as tough as this one, but still, she's in good form, and she's a major player with Edgard. And then you've got Safi's horse, who I prefer, and the 2, let's be honest, who's a drop-down, first-time Safi, going from With Peace and Love, a barn that just doesn't win all that often, to one of the best year-round stables here on this circuit with a Misael. So that is fine and good in my eyes, and I would imagine the Deuce, let's be honest, is going to be favored. The other key talking point is now with the early scratch of a Barrio Forever. It's a 4-horse rematch, in fact, from the 5th race here on November 4th. And the horse I wanted to focus in mostly on is the number 1 in this race, Talk the Talk. And we'll roll the replay. And I backtracked it to the start because I wanted to show, don't be completely turned off with this filly at 9-5, the fact that she didn't run that gray horse who just stumbled pretty badly and abruptly out of the starting gate. And I remember watching this race going, Talk the Talk didn't run all that well, and I was wrong. It was a bad take because she had that bad stumble. You'll watch her angle widest of all, and she'll run pretty well in this race. The other key contender coming out of this replay we're looking at is Treves. She's the number 7. She's the outside speed right there, and she just could not wear down Bahamian Girl. But that said, her recent form's been good here at Gulfstream Park West, and the one thing that may separate her from some of these other fillies, including the gray horse Talk the Talk, coming out of the race we just looked at, she's got early speed, and that could make her absolutely doubly tough in this race, or certainly a live contender there in the middle of the pack. That's the 7, Trevis. So I'm going 2 Wasafi's trainer change over the 9 and 7 out of the race we just checked out. We'll get back on the turf. Let's move it ahead. Wednesday's third will go at a mile. It's a 2-year-old, a $40,000 to $35,000 maiden claimer. And in sizing this race up, you had, and I had noted it in my early pick 5 summation, biggest early scratch, most impactful early scratch on the card today is Ghostly Prince, who I nearly pulled the trigger on as a top pick. But with him out, I'm pretty comfortable saying that this could be a good spot for the 5 hard game. And I'll talk about him first before a few of the other shorter price runners. And what turns me on here with this Colt by Hardspun, because you don't know if he can be competitive here. And that's the real caveat. But I would like to think the potential positives outweigh the negatives, so to speak, with a horse who's probably not going to be all that short of a price, despite being first-time Mike Maker off the claim. And just here's a quick stat that I pulled with this Colt by Hardspun. You've got a situation where Maker does pretty well, running just straight-up maiden claiming runners out of the claim box, as you can see on the turf, where he's batting above 30%. And clearly for a guy that attracts a lot of attention and for the most part uses top riders, the fact that he's got an ROI above $3, I think probably speaks to horses that maybe looked a little bit like the 5 hard game, who just didn't show anything first out on the dirt, didn't really get bet all that much, but he's first-time Maker. And I do like not only the hard spun influence, you've got 2 older turf-winning siblings from 4 to try the grass. So first-time Maker with a horse who's bred to move up on the turf. That's good enough for me with the 5 hard game. Todd Pletcher's horse is probably going to be favored here, the 3 Honorable, with Edgar riding. Ran fine last time. For my money, although I have him second, I think this is a better field. I really think this is going to be a deeper field than the race that he exits out of, where he was just wired by Halcyon Digest, who paid around $25 in that race. But no qualms, no real negatives per se again, knocks with me concerning Honorable. But again, with the Maker horse that I'm taking a shot with, and both the inside posted Relito, who's back on the turf and ran okay in his last turf start during a time where speed was dominating over at Gulfstream. He's in the mix here in the 6 Young Flint. They're 2 well-connected maiden special weight to maiden claiming drop-downs this afternoon that warrant the look in a pretty interesting race. But I'm going White Bridles all the way in the 3rd. As I take a little time out after the 4th race, we'll get through the 4th here. It's a 10-race Wednesday at GPW. We got a 2-year-old filly, 12-5 maiden claimer on the dirt going 5, and not going to spend a lot of time in this race. I'm mid-pack. I'm giving the benefit of the doubt. It might be fairly slim and narrow, just to the 6 Fifth Illusion. There's not much to say. A horse that has not run well, has showed speed and quit in 2 races. Aside from the fact that Edgar will ride the card, and with Miguel not riding, I guess, he's a heavy favorite to win the title here. Taking into account he wants to be number 1 and wrap up the meet as the leading rider at Gulfstream Park West, I still got to tell you, for him to take the call on the 6 Fifth Illusion, that piques my interest, and that was, I think, what in the end caused me to pull the trigger, putting that filly on top over the Paco Firster for Barry Croft and the 5 Lights on Girl. And you've got a horse who's got speed in Sierra Diamond, but boy, big price aside, she is coming out of a race she should have won last time out back on November the 5th. We'll take a little breather with the first 4 down. We'll chase the rainbow at a big guarantee of 4 1/4 after this. Download the First Bet app without a doubt with the holidays upon us. A great time if you haven't done so already with that promo code Sport of Kings. And soaking up the last remaining days here. 3 racing cards remain forever here in Miami Gardens at Gulfstream Park West. And pretty shot from that quarter pole tower there, and we'll see 10 races today. A lot of action on both the main track and the turf course, which is good news. It's been a rough and also frustrating season here at Gulfstream West with Mother Nature, just given the barrage of precipitation that we've like almost endlessly received. You can't do anything about the weather. You can't control it. You can only make the best of it. But I'm happy we're on the turf today, and again, a horse that I like in the first race is currently sitting up there at 10-1. And a horse I've been chasing for like the last 4 months is coming up in the last race. So I'm pretty excited to finally see Angel's Entry on the turf. A couple of quick reminders here on this partly cloudy Getaway Wednesday at Gulfstream West. Friday's a big deal. No live racing here tomorrow with Thanksgiving, but, I mean, you talk about getting back in the swing of things. In a major way the day after Thanksgiving, 91K plus in that Stronach 5 carryover pool, just the 12% takeout, and it's an all East Coast affair with 3 from Laurel, 2 from Gulfstream Park West. And I finished Friday's card at GPW probably this morning at maybe 5:45 a.m. before writing my analysis. I was up and kind of burning the midnight oil, so to speak, drinking a lot of espresso. And I can say from personal experience, the 2 GPW races in this Stronach 5 sequence with the carryover, they are both barn burners, especially that 9th race. That is a wickedly tough turf sprint, but there's a lot of quality in that race. And if you're doing the work, give a look to Henry's World, who's going to be a pretty good price for Kathleen O'Connell. I think that horse might be able to wire the field, and my top pick in Friday's 9th race. As we move forward, and with the Stronach 5 carryover on Friday, another friendly reminder, we'll have a mandatory payout here, or cash out in the Rainbow Six on closing day Saturday. We've got that guarantee currently of 4 1/4. A lot of dough in a sequence that begins in earnest in today's 5th race. And I'll take a little bit of a shot with Ronnie. Ronnie enjoying his pre-Thanksgiving day sabbatical. I'll take a little shot at this ticket here that clocks in at $25.60. No singles. I almost stood alone with Angel's Entry. I was going to be like a wise guy extraordinaire and just stand alone with that horse in the last race. But I'd hate to get there and not use or get beat by the 8 Gun of Glory. I'm not saying Gun of Glory is a lock to win, but it might just be the spot for him. And there's a similar sentiment, I think, in the 6th with the number 7 Nimble Beast, who, depending upon how much money you're willing to put in, I would imagine there might be some people singling and standing alone with Nimble Beast in the 6th race. But I do think Lord Melbourne, the 3, is going to run. I had already mentioned the 5th race, and I'll elaborate a little further. That is just a very difficult turf claimer, very evenly matched field. Does Airball catch a turf course that she's not in love with today as a clear favorite in the 7th? I also included the number 10, Taylor's in Orbit, who I've been following throughout her career and do like her as a horse, and didn't run well last time for Georgina off the claim. Do we get something along the lines of the a better Taylor's in Orbit? And then you've got that good matchup in the 8 between Todd's Abilene Trail and Terry Pompey's Eris Indy, who's coming out of, wait till you see the chart of the race she's coming out of. It has been a strong affair in the race she's exiting against Bajan Girl. Anyway, this 5th race, we're on the turf here going a mile. You know, the one word that kept coming up in my mind doing the work on this card a few days back was parity. And, you know, these things are always tough to quantify, but I think this is the kind of race, as silly as it sounds, you're going to need to get a little bit lucky with the trip that you pull in this spot. And as I work my way through, I wound up taking a horse who's not going to be a big price in the 6th La Incondicional. And the reasons I'm taking this filly by Verrazano are probably reasons that are fairly obvious if you're looking at her on paper, where she's just not a dirt horse, nor is she a 5/8 horse. So, I mean, you're almost knocking 2 birds off with 1 stone looking at her last race here in the run-up to Halloween, where, you know, I think it served, off the turf or not, as the perfect prep, and she's back for the leading trainer, getting Paco, and a good spot for her to at least run well, along with the 9 Sweet Story, who seems to be fairly consistent, and considering she has spent, despite being 0 for 10 on the year, she has spent the majority, in fact, I think in all the races, maybe with the exception of her last start, I think she's in a way faced the deepest fields time and time again, and this dated 12-5 could be good for her. The inside posted horse with the Luca riding and subbing for Angel Arroyo and the one Sassy Justice. She's got some recent races on the go back and some early speed. And do you make an argument with the 3 Catnip Kitten? Maybe this is like the less heralded version of her older stablemate, Adorable Aida, who just loves it here at Gulfstream West and has won a couple of times. In fact, she's beaten a few horses in this field today for Armando de la Cerda. I would not sleep on the 3 Catnip Kitten. She's run exceptionally well on this turf course, which we've learned, I think, or at least I've learned in my 4 years working down here. That might be a positive. Not every horse likes this grass course at Gulfstream Park West. Halfway home with 5 down and 5 to go. You've got Nimble Beast coming up as a pretty short price in this Wednesday 6th race. I think Pete's got this horse at 6 to 5 on the morning line. And I guess the eternal question is, will the 14th time be the charm? We'll just go back just because. We'll go back to his last race here. Once again, I mean, the common theme with this horse, he's been a 4 consecutive beaten favorite. Last 4 races, he's lost as the favorite, and he was odds on in this spot. Yet, you know, that first over chasing outside trip, the entire meet here essentially has been a tough one to pull. And it was a case where Chill Haze, who skimmed the rail, just kept finding more. You've also got a case where Nimble Beast, despite being a professional maiden and never the bride, but often the bridesmaid, you know, he beat the rest of the field by a pole, and that race did come up fast. I am giving him, call me a chalk-eating weasel, I'm giving him one more chance this afternoon. I would be careful, though, going all in on him. And if you're looking for another horse, I do think the 3 Lord Melbourne, who didn't run last time, but at least he's coming out of a race that produced Chill Haze, who just beat the big favorite here, Nimble Beast. You know, at least that race has been kind of pseudo-live in or around this condition. And, you know, maybe a horse that just didn't want to go 5.5, and maybe longer is better for him as a son of Curlin in for the 10K, and he'll have Paco. That's the 3 Lord Melbourne. When I drew up the race, I think he is the main danger. Maybe the main danger to Nimble Beast is himself, because, you know, you might be dealing with a horse who's just never going to win and never deliver that knockout punch. But if there's a potential fly in the ointment that isn't named Nimble Beast, I'm thinking Lord Melbourne is sitting on a big race today trying a mile. Let's get on to the 7th here. And, you know, there's a real question, not regarding Airball's weapon of choice, which is that blazing speed, her gameness, her talent. I mean, for a lower level, like blue-collar, 6-year-old Florida-bred mare, she is as tough as can be. I mean, she really is. Now, we're going to backtrack to her performance 2 back. This is on the turf on September 6th. Oh, no spotlight here? Okay, so September 6th. And her weapon of choice, again, is her early speed. My one little issue today is she's probably a lot better on firmer ground. I mean, I think she's one of these mares and turf sprinters in general, that really likes to have her hooves thundering on a firmer turf. She's not getting that this afternoon. Does that potentially open up the door? She's the most talented in the race. She's had the best campaign. That's not debatable. Do the conditions, though, that her connections or she can't control, do they maybe even things out a little bit in this spot? And if that's the case, you know, I don't know what the 10 Tailors in Orbit is going to do, but she's got races on the go back. And I would like to go back to her last start here, her first for Georgina off the claim, and just say, you know, she was a little sluggish early, taken widest off the far turn. Maybe it's a race you draw a line through, and second out for this barn off the claim. We'll get something a little more in step to one of her better races on the go back. We'll see. But I think the turf condition is the biggest worry there, taking a horse in Airball who might be around 7 or 5 or so in that 7th race. Final dirt race, in fact, is coming up in Wednesday's 8th. And we'll go a mile here with this 3-and-up filly mare, $25,000 optional claimer. And in looking at this field, there are 2 key horses, 2 disparate horses on paper, but 2 key horses that are going to take the most money. Let's start first off with the horse that's probably not going to be favored, and that's Abilene Trail for Todd Pletcher. And although she won last time out, and not to be too hard on a horse who was coming out of or at least off a layoff that was like right on the cusp of 14 months, you know, during the day when this race was run back on October 30th, that was a week before the Breeders' Cup, give or take. I remember thinking, man, Abilene Trail, layoff or no layoff of a year plus, really cut it close, and was a little concerned that this field really wasn't like a true maiden special weight race. And I think we got more evidence to that. And had Victor LeBron, by the way, gone outside and not saved all the ground, Abilene Trail probably gets beat. But getting back to my other point, I just worry about the quality of that field as a whole, considering now they both caught wet tracks here Sunday, a sloppy track. But with Cozy Cafe and Goodbye Gabby both coming back and another kind of run-of-the-mill softer looking maiden special weight, neither one of them really ran all that well. That's potentially a concern, as is this stat. And as good as Todd's numbers are off comparable layoffs to the one that Abilene Trail won off of last time out, I thought this stat was noteworthy, where you're talking about horses returning second time back off a year layoff or greater that won last out. There's been 9 starters, none of them have won, and in pulling that, I had noticed there were 3 odds-on favorites as part of that 9-horse sample. Horses have lost at 1-5, 3-5, 4-5, 1 at 8-5, and another pair at 2-1. So that is basically my summation of Abilene Trail. I mean, in theory, is she likely to improve? Yeah, I'd like to think so. But I do think she's got some hurdles in this race, and maybe in a way the biggest one is the horse right next door to her on her outside, an Heiress Indy, for trainer Terry Pompey. And I feel like, this daughter of Take Charge Indy has just steadily stepped up her game as the year has gone on, like many of Terry's horses have done. And although she was beaten a city block, maybe a couple of city blocks last time out, look at this race. This Bajan Girl race, which was run back on October 8th. This was the first full week of racing we had here this fall. This race has been monstrously live. I mean, you've had 4 next out winners, including Bajan Girl, who might be, again, on the cusp of grade 3 quality for Rohan Crichton. She got a 94, and KO's horse that broke the track record here in Sunday's last race, This Is My Time, who had freaked out in the gate prior to this race on October 8th, she came back and ran a hole in the wind. So this looks like a favorite. I'm pretty or feeling reliable regarding the chances of Heiress Indy, but a monstrously good race and field she's coming out of. We'll see how Abilene Trail does matching heads against her, or at least matching up against her in the main track finale. 9th race will go at a mile and a 16th. It's a high level, and you've got some firepower and quite a bit of back class here. Conditioned allowance optional claimer on the turf. Hey Dakota, got no issue with him as the favorite, who just seems like he's kept good company, coming out of a nice win at Kentucky Downs, and moreover, he may get a pretty good trip in this race because some of the bigger players, he might be the biggest on paper with Maker and Michael Hoy bringing him in from Ellis Park and picking up Luke, in fact, who's subbing for Hector Berrios. But this is a horse who's well spotted, and he may pull a great trip because again, some of the bigger players on paper, like my horse, the one Noble Indy, the 2 Renaissance Frolic, they like to mix it up early on. I've always had a little thing for Noble Indy. He might be a touch inconsistent, but I still think at this stage of the game, even if he's lost a little bit of a step or two, I still think what he can bring when he's on his game and he fires a good shot, I think that puts him firmly in the mix, and I'm going to take him on top of the Maker ship in from Kentucky Downs. We'll wrap things up here. Race number 10 as we hit double digits. We're on the turf for the nightcap, a $16,000 to $14,000 maiden claimer. I really have no qualms with the 8 Gun of Glory, who has just run, in context in relation to this field, he has run fine on the turf. And if nobody steps forward, and he maybe can build a little bit off his turf race 2 back, I mean, he might just be a little more talented than the others in this race, and he's a deserving favorite with Edgar riding in the finale. Yet I have been waiting. I feel like this is like the 5th or 6th time, no exaggeration, we have had Blewett's Bullets for Angel's Entry, who is the 9-horse here in the last, and I'm going to try to wake up. I am really hoping, and I guess anticipating, a 180-degree turnaround with this horse on the turf this afternoon. We know he hates the dirt. I mean, he can't stand up on the dirt. That he's proven in 3 races where he's been beating a pole. But this could be a different ball game today fact that he's by point of entry. Bill Mott trained the dam, who was pretty good. She went 4 for 14 on the turf and banked 140K or so. And there's been 3 very solid multiple turf winning siblings in the family from 6 to try the grass, including Sturgeon, who's a familiar and pretty tough turf sprinter around these parts. So give Angel's Entry a look. I think he may not win today. I think he's going to run a lot better. I guess he can't run much worse, but I'm anticipating a big effort out of him, and he should be a good price. I think he's 8-1 on the morning line with a Misael riding in the finale. So we've got 20 on the clock. We've got a little Gabe Pruitt action coming up, and we're glad you're with us, everybody, as we kick off the final Wednesday card of the season here at Gulfstream Park West.
And they're off! Second in the 2-path. Ground on her inside. Racing. Got a quarter of a mile to go, and he's 6 on top. Last of the 12.